All right. Let's start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Racha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Isaiah 11 and 10 speaking of the natural Gentiles? What I mean by natural Gentiles, talking about the actual heathen nations. Now, we've been using this chat GPT a lot. Pastor uses it a lot. Other brothers use it a lot, because it makes good for lessons. You could ask certain questions, and depending on how it answers you, you can use that as talking points in different lessons, because the chat GPT pretty much takes information from the web, and formulates, a lot of times two different views, two different opinions, or two different interpretations. And the majority of the world has a world Christian view. So the world Christian view is usually dominating, the platforms of the internet, for lack of better words, because that's the most accepted, in this society, in this world. But the truth's still out there. And when I typed this question in, just a thought that came to mind. Forget what video I was watching, but this thought came to mind, so I typed it in. And this is what came up, and like I said, you could use this for like different talking points. So I said, are the Gentiles in Isaiah 11:10 the dispersed Israelites? Great question. Let's look at Isaiah 11:10 in context and explore whether the Gentiles there refers to dispersed Israelites or to non-Israelite nations. Isaiah 11:10, KJV. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To which shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. So it says, key term, root of Jesse. This is a messianic title referring to a descendant of Jesse, father of David, understood by Jews and Christians to point to the Messiah, right? Yahweh Shai, because scripture said, it is written of me, I come in the volume of the book. Here it says Gentiles, Hebrew, Goyim or Goyim, usually refers to non-Israelite nations. So you had it when these devils speak, you got to listen to like certain key words, usually, probably, possibly, because they know, that they know the truth in certain cases, but they're not going to give you the truth. But in their speech or in the things that they write, they normally tell you or give you hints. All right. So it says usually refers to non-Israelites. Now check it out how they break it down. So are Gentiles here really dispersed Israelites? Not likely. And here's why. So this they're going to give you points of why it's not talking about the Israelites that are scattered. Hebrew word used, Goyim or Goyim. Goyim is considered consistently used in the Hebrew Bible to refer to non-Israelite nations. Yes, that is the case. And it also is used to, identify Israelites also. And let's prove that. All right. Let's go to Exodus 19 and 6, right? It says, and you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. Okay. And holy nation. It says, these are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So we don't get it twisted of who this is addressed to. So the Lord said that they are a holy nation. When we scroll down, right, you have the word holy there, which is Quadawash or Kodash. And then you have the word nation, which is the word Gawaya, which is singular of saying nations. Okay, Gawaya, nation. See, nation, people, usually of non-Hebrew people, of descendants of Abraham, of Israel. See, so sometimes it refers to the nation of Israel. Sometimes it refers to other nations. It depends on the context. You see? So going back, there we covered that. That was one instance where it used the word nation, but it used the word nation singular in a singular form, as you can see here. The word there is wa and gawaya, nation, kwadawash or kodash, which is holy. All right. When you touch the word here, holy, right, it takes you to the holy and then nation. You see there, gawaya, which is singular. Now let's show you that Israel could also refer to gawayam. Right? This is Genesis 35 and 9. And the Most High appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padanaram and blessed him. And the power said unto him, thy name is Jacob, thy name shall not be called any more Jacob. Yeah, because Jacob goes back to the word Yaiquab, which means supplanter. But Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel. And Israel goes back to the Hebrew Yasher Allah, which means he, prince power, or he, a prince of God. And the Most High said unto him, I am the power almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. So this is dealing with with Jacob, the father of the nation of Israel. So the Lord is telling him to be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, Jacob, so Israelites, and kings shall come out of thy loins. When you look at the word here for nation, Gawaya, you see there, and then nations, Gawayam. See, this is where you get the English term Goyim. So there are instances where the Israelites are referred to either nations singular or nations plural. So you can't use that faulty argument and say that because it says that, Goyim, that's non-Israelite, so that makes the point. No, it doesn't, because we just proved that it didn't. It says when Isaiah or other prophets refer to dispersed Israelites, they usually use terms like remnant, house of Israel, Jacob, Ephraim, or specify the exile context. Yeah, and that is true in most cases. But in other cases, it uses terms like stranger, which the stranger, let me show you that. Let's go to Leviticus 25, because there's a particular word that's used for stranger that represents the Israelites. But then there's other, is it Leviticus? Yeah, 25. Then there's other instances where it uses Hebrew words that are normally applied to the heathen nations. I say like 95% of the time. But in about 5% of the time, it refers to the Israelites, even though it calls them strangers, like an actual stranger, because the Israelites became strange from the covering that the Lord put upon them to the covering that Jake took upon himself from Egypt and these different other captivities. Changed the look, changed the image that the Lord created Israel to be in. So when we go to Leviticus 25, right, and 35, check this out. And if thy brother be waxen poor, so this is talking about an Israelite, and fallen in decay with thee, then shalt thou relieve him. Yea, though he be a what? A stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. So let's look at these two words, stranger and sojourner. Stranger is the word gar, which the word gar means to sojourn. So you had instances where, let's say you have family, wherever you're at, you have family, let's say in New York, let's say you're from Cali or from the Midwest or whatever, and you have family members that come from Jersey or from New York or from Washington or from Florida, and they come to visit you. They are your immediate family, but in your home there, where you're staying, they are strangers because they don't reside there. So when they do come into town, and if you have enough room, you can lodge them or sojourn there or have them stay there temporarily until they go back to their home. If you have a room. So that's what Israelites were doing that were living or were born in foreign lands. They were coming to Jerusalem, and they were sojourners there. Remember, you had Israelites dispersed going way back. and they would come, 3 times a year from these different regions to come to Jerusalem. That's why in Acts 2, it says there were Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. And then when you go to the word sojourner, lo and behold, you have what? Thawashab, which is one of the words, not the most popular, but one of the words that is used for an actual heathen. But in this case, it's being used for an Israelite, a sojourner. See, that he may live with thee. So this is talking about an Israelite foreigner that will come from a different land. And it didn't necessarily mean he knew he was an Israelite foreigner. It means he knew he was an Israelite. He knew what tribe he belonged to, but he just wasn't born in that region, whether it was Jerusalem or Jericho, wherever Israel was at. He wasn't born there. He was born in a different land, so he would be considered a stranger. All right? So let's go from there. Let's go back. Context, Isaiah 11. The chapter talks, so we know there's instances where Israelites would become foreign, and also what they're not taking into account here is that the Israelites were scattered throughout the four corners. And that's why when you read the New Testament, you read the word Gentile and salvation, you think it's talking about the other nations. No, it's not. It's talking about those Israelites that were scattered, because that's who the promise was made to. But these devils want to change that. So this is going to give you a context of pretty much the broad Christian worldview breakdown of Isaiah 11 and 10. Context of Isaiah 11, the chapter talks about a future time. That's true, of universal peace, right? When the kingdom comes and the Messiah's reign. Yes, perfect. Verse 12 specifically distinguishes between the Gentile nations and the dispersed of Israel. No, it does not. It says, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations. Why? What is an ensign? The ensign is the Bible, the good news, the gospel. Let's go real quick to Psalms 64. And is it 64? No, it's not 64. Psalms 60 and 4. Let's try that. 60 and verse 4. Thou was given a banner to them that fear thee. A banner is a flag. In this case, it's talking about the scriptures, that it may be displayed because of the truth. Salah. So this banner is the Bible, the truth, the gospel, the good news, right? So that first step for the nations. Now, why is that? Why is it going to be displayed out there? Because the Lord said that this gospel of the truth shall be preached to the four corners of the earth, and then shall the end come, because the Israelites were scattered to the four corners of the earth. And when we go to Deuteronomy 28 and 64, just to go straight to the point, it says, and the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And this is pretty much what turned you to be strange. Let's show you that real quick. 1 Corinthians 12 and 2. It says, you know that you were Gentiles, past tense, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. So that's what made you Gentiles, when you were carried away and you worship these other gods. You see, but these Christians, cannot put the pieces of the puzzle together because the Holy Spirit is not dealing with them. You see? So going back, so that's moot. And shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah. Yeah, because you had those that knew they were Israelites, and you had some that didn't know that they were Israelites. During the time of the Greek captivity, those individuals that the Apostle Paul went to, they didn't know they were Israelites. They thought they were Greeks. You talking about generation after generation almost 200 years, about 200 years of generations being passed, where you were taught that you were Greek, you were speaking Greek, eating the Greek diet, following the Greek gods, worshiping the Greek gods. So there's a distinction. It says, so in verse 10, Gentiles are separated from the outcasts of Israel, right? Because the Israelites are scattered among the nations. Let's go real quick to Hosea chapter 8 and verse 8. Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles, as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. So of course you have to go and preach the word when we go out to speak in the highways and the hedges, right? When we go to these different cities, do you not have a mixture of nations walking by? But then what? The sign is for what? For the Israelites. The sign or the banner is for the Israelites, and more specifically for the elect. And that's the bottom line. Now, when we go to St. John chapter 7, it gives you another clue. 7, and we're just going to go straight to the point and hit some different translations. St. John 7:35, then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? Because these Israelites that were dispersed among these nations, they were being called Gentiles by the Jews in Jerusalem and Israel. You can read about that in Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, who are called the uncircumcision by the circumcision in the flesh made by hand. NLT, the Jewish leaders were puzzled by this statement. Where is he planning to go? They asked. Is he thinking of leaving the country and going to the Jews in other lands? Maybe he will even teach the Greeks, right, the Israelite foreigners. NIV, the Jews said one to another, where does this man intend to go, that we cannot find him? Will he go where our people live scattered among the Greeks and teach the Greeks? See, so they understood about the scattering of the Israelites among the actual nations, as we read here, and also as we read in Hosea 8 and 8. Just to give you, an example. Hosea 8 and 8, Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. And that's why the Lord can't deal with them, because they were foreign to him. They had on them strange apparel, strange clothing. So the Lord said, yeah, you know what? Forget y'all. Done with y'all. This is the brother. I can't really I don't know if that's. It says, by the time of Yahushai, Greek influence still strong. Greek remained the dominant language of culture, commerce, and education. Yep. The Roman Empire controlled the region, but Greek culture still ruled everyday life. Yeah. Greco-Roman word. That's correct. That's why it's called the Greco-Roman Empire. Because the dominant language was Greek. Because it went back to the Hellenization of the Greeks. But they did speak Latin, but Greek was just more what's the word I'm looking for? Famous, for lack of better words, or used at that time. So let's go back, glean some more off of this. Traditional Israelite and Christian interpretation. See, traditional. Both traditions generally interpret the Gentiles in Isaiah 11 and 10 as non-Jewish nations coming to seek the Messiah. Traditions generally interpret. Traditions do not give interpretation. Let's go real quick to is that Mark 6 or is it 7? Nope, 7. It got to be 7. Right here. Mark 7 and 5. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders? See, tradition. And this is the problem. What we see today, the problem that we have, what we see today is pretty much, a tradition that has been passed down from the time of the Renaissance to the present, and that's around the time when the whole world was deceived into this modern form of pagan Christianity. Paradosis, tradition, giving up, giving over, the act of giving up, surrender of the cities given over, which done by word, mouth, and writing. An example, tradition by instruction, narrative, precept, etc. Objectively, that which is delivered, the substance of a teaching of the body of precepts, especially ritual, which in the opinion of the later Jews were orally delivered by Moses and orally transmitted in unbroken succession to subsequent generations, which precepts, both illustrating and expanding the written law as they did, were to be obeyed with equal reverence. See, so the traditions and the rules and regulations of the elders, you know, was held in higher veneration than the laws of the Most High. All right. So it says, the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said unto them, well hath Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of the Most High, you hold the tradition of men, as washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things you do. So they held the tradition of men in higher regard than the Most High. So just because there's a tradition, and the general tradition interprets the Gentiles in Isaiah 11 and 10 as being non-Israelites, what they got to do with us? So it says, conclusion, no, the Gentiles in Isaiah 11:10 are not dispersed Israelites, which that's what you say. They are not Israelite nations who in the Messianic age will also turn to the root of Jesse. They are a non-Israelite nation. No, they're not. They're Israelites who in the Messianic age will also turn to the root of Jesse, the Messiah, indicating a time of global inclusion and peace. So pretty much, they're saying no based off of the world view of this scripture, which is a world Christian pagan view of this chapter. But when you go into it, it breaks down what it's talking about. Matter of fact, I got it here. And also another good one would have been Ezekiel 37, which I had lined up, but I didn't go to. So let's go back here. Isaiah 11 and 10. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. Right. So you're going to have, the Yahushua, which is the Messiah. It's going to stand for the, deliverance, the good news, and the atonement, for lack of better words, to the Most High for the people of Israel. To wit shall the Gentiles seek, which are the Israelite foreigners, and his rest shall be glorious. Right? It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left, see, from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, right? Because this gospel has to be taught to the four corners of the earth, because Israelites are scattered to the four corners of the earth. And with that, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel. Matter of fact, let's go real quick to Baruch chapter 5. Let's go straight to the point. 5 and 5. It says, "Arise, O Jerusalem, and stand on high, and look about toward the east," because that's where our home is, in the east. "And behold, thy children gathered from the west," we're in the western hemisphere, "unto the east, by the word of the Holy One, rejoicing in the remembrance of the Most High." This is dealing with Israelites. First verse, "Put off, O Jerusalem, the garment of mourning and affliction." So this is talking about the Israelites, it's not talking about the other nations. But we just happen to be scattered among the other nations, so the word has to go out among the nations to gather the elect of the Most High. But you big boneheads ain't gonna get it, and even if you do get it, you're not gonna give up that lie that you've been taught, because that's just what you've been taught. All right, so let's go back. And he shall, Isaiah 11:12, "and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth," because the Israelites are scattered. Okay? And that's why he's going to set up the ensign, because he's going to set up the message to be broadcasted everywhere, because the Israelites are scattered everywhere. And that's part of, part of what the Lord said would happen. He would gather us from these nations. I'm trying to find, let's see, is it? Let me try this one. Right, Nehemiah 1:8. "Remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, If you transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations." See? "But if you turn unto me and keep my commandments and do them, though they were of you cast out unto the uttermost part of the heaven," that's all the way over here on the other side of the world, "yet will I gather thee from thence, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there." See? Bottom line. So Isaiah 11 is talking about the Israelites being scattered. Isaiah 11:12, "And shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth," because we are scattered among these nations. So the Lord has to gather us. And this is the mechanism that he's using. This is why you see the Bible in every different language out there, translations, because you have Israelites scattered among all these nations. Some of them even look like the nations. You couldn't even tell them any different that they were Israelites, because they've been so assimilated into that culture that that's all they know. You see? So that's why the Lord is setting up this word to gather the elect. Matter of fact, let's leave you with Matthew 24. Because these are things you're going to encounter, different arguments you're going to encounter. Matthew 24:14, "And this gospel of the kingdom," that's the ensign, "shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations." Why? Because the Israelites are scattered among all nations. "And then shall the end come." And we are to tell the nations also where they are to go. They're going to go into captivity. They got to know that too. Let's go real quick to Jeremiah 1:5. It says, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations." And that's why we tell the nations where they're going. And we tell the Israelites, the ones of them that are part of the elect will be delivered, and the rest will be destroyed. Bottom line. And one more, Isaiah 34:1. "Come near, ye nations, to hear." So this is a message to the world of what? The destruction of America, Babylon the Great. "And hearken, you people, let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it." So this message is for you. "For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter." That's what's coming. Your world is going to collapse, and our world is going to begin underneath Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And no nation will ever rule on the top ever again over the Israelites. They're never going to get the upper hand. We're not going to get caught slipping. After 1,000 years, you be, so comfortable that, you lose your edge. No. So stop it. All right. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified, and if you haven't, then, hey, just move on. Shalom.